Okay, we have a problem that's about a carriage, and the wheels in the carriage go round and round. There's a forewheel, and there's a hind wheel. The forewheel is the front wheel. Let me draw a picture of a front wheel. And by the way, whether I know what these wheels look like or not, it's incidental to me. And a hind wheel, kind of exaggerating. So, front wheel, rear wheel, forewheel, hind wheel. You get the idea. All right, so for sake of argument, I'm going to try to label these things with letters that make sense to me. And I want to put the wheels, when they go around, they touch the ground. And as they move forward, like one revolution, they go forward by their circumference. So I'm going to start talking about their circumference here. And this is the forewheel, the front wheel. I'm going to say its circumference is F feet. And I'm going to say the hind wheel circumference is H feet. All right? And it says, a forewheel of a carriage makes A revolutions more. So I know they're talking about revolutions now. Right? Now I'll get to that later, but right now I want to talk about, the revolutions they're doing. And it says that they're traveling B feet. So H is in feet, F is in feet, and B is in feet. So they're traveling, right? They're going forward B feet. So how many revolutions would they make then? Well, the hind wheel would make, if it goes forward by B feet, I'd have to take the B and divide it by H. All right? So for example, let's say B were H feet. Well, H divided by H would be 1 revolution. If the B were 2H, that would be 2 revolutions, so forth and so on. So this over here represents the number of revolutions, number of revs. All right, now let's talk about the front wheel, and that's going to do. It goes B feet, and we're dividing by the circumference of that. Then the question comes is, and again, I hope it's not confusing you. We know that one made more revolutions than the other. So they're definitely different size wheels. If they were identical wheels, they'd make identical. In other words, they would be equal. They're not equal, though, all right? So somebody makes more revolutions than the other. Now, I want to, again, emphasize to you that it says the forewheel of the carriage makes A revolutions more than the hind wheel. So that means I've got to give to the hind wheel, all right, the number of revolutions they said. Now, someone's going to say, that's all interesting and good, but you have something written down a little bit differently. And I want to point out, I want to go through the key at this point. I'm not done with it, though. But I want to make sure you know that this is written up for you. So it says, let F be the circumference of the forewheel in feet. Well, we talked about that. Let H be the circumference of the hind wheel in feet. And I wrote this down over here. We kind of talked through it. What does B over F stand for? It's the number of revolutions the forewheel makes when it travels B feet forward. What does B over H stand for? The number of revolutions the hind wheel makes when the carriage moves forward by B feet. Now, notice what they did. They did minus A from the B over F. Well, I got to be honest with you. It's the same thing I have written over here, because what you could do is subtract A from both sides. Same meaning. So I'm pretty comfortable with that statement, all right? So I'm pretty comfortable with the statement that's over here. I want to go to the next statement, though. It goes on to say, if the circumference of the forewheel were increased by 1/n. I'm going to write that down for you. So the circumference of the forewheel was increased by 1/n. That's 1 over m. And then it goes on to say the hind wheel was increased by 1/n. So that's the new circumference of the forewheel and the hind wheel. All right, just reading. If the circumference of the forewheel increased by 1/n and the circumference of the hind wheel increased by 1/n, the forewheel would make C revolutions more when traveling D feet. Well, I'm going to put the D over here. All right? Now, you got to be careful again. I got to read it. All right? It's always careful when you read it. I can't remember what I just read, by the way. They say the forewheel makes C revolutions more than the hind wheel. Well, let's write this down. There's some relationship between this number of revolutions. Who does more revolutions? Let's read it again. The forewheel makes more. So what do I have to do? I got to add to the hind wheel. How many revolutions? C. Now, I had to jam that in there, by the way. I hope you know what I'm saying, plus C. All right, what do they have written down? Let's go over it. I see it. I see what they're saying. They got this. I see that. They have this. I see that. But what they did, they didn't give C, they took C. So what are they really doing? They're subtracting C from both sides. All right? They got the same thing. All right, so this is tough. And what I'm saying over here is that the whole premise here, believe it or not, is to get a system of equations for you to solve. All right? A system of equations to solve. And I got to be honest with you, looking at it, there's a tremendous number of letters in the problem. You know, you got A, you got B, you got F, you got H, you got M, you got N, you got C. You got a lot of letters. What you need to do, though, is concentrate. And it's not going to be easy. You need to concentrate on doing this. And I want to point out what I mean by that. You know, looking at this first equation, let me get my eraser out. It's not easy, all right? But I hope you realize in the end, when the dust settles, your goal is to find out what F is and what H is, all right? So what I would claim, looking at this problem over here, is I would be using the first equation. And write down what I mean by that. And I'm going to solve the first equation for one of the letters that I'm interested in. So I'm going to write this over here, and this is going to be B minus AF over F is equal to B over H. And I could solve this for H. Let me write this down for you. It's going to be F B minus AF equals H over B. Well, you know what? I could just simply multiply both sides by B, and I find out that H is equal to BF B minus AF. Yep, it took me time to get there, but I got that. Now, here's the problem, though, and I want to point out what the problem is. You need to take this and pop it into this equation over here. Now, I want to point out what I mean by that. Wherever you see H, you see it there, you need to plug it in. And by the way, I don't find it unpleasant, but I'm only going to do one. Because after you do that, you're going to find out what F is. And then you're going to have to find out what H is. So I want to go to the whiteboard, and I'm going to do that. And as I do that at the whiteboard, you know what? I can do some of it here. Maybe I shouldn't do it all. I should leave it as an exercise. And, you know, looking at it, yeah, you know, I'm going to leave it as an exercise. However, I want to say this. If you like, you can also use Sage. And you just simply, you know, type in the equations, ask Sage to solve it for F. Now, by the way, I may be confused by it. I'm not going to say Sage is going to make a nice, simple answer to the one I have over here, but it's really not bad. You can use Sage, but I got to be honest with you. Once you start to realize the substitution problem, a lot of algebraic manipulations, by the way, you'll get it. You'll get it. But I'll leave it as an exercise, okay? Because I realize these things can go on forever if I keep doing all the work for you. Thank you.